You're listening to Destination University, a podcast for college-bound teens and the parents, mentors, and educators who support them. If that is you, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. Welcome to episode number 79, a conversation with April Crabtree, Assistant Vice Provost of the University of San Francisco. And today we'll be discussing all things Star Trek, yoga, and zombies. Just kidding. Although hold tight, because I just might get her to speak a little bit of Klingon for all of us. Hello there, everyone. I'm your host, Dr. Cynthia Kwon, author of the book Tips, Tales, and Truths for Teens. Welcome to Destination University, where we explore extraordinary people who lived ordinary childhoods and found a pathway to college. By being here today, it makes you a rock star. Congratulations and welcome. Well, we're so excited to welcome April. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Cynthia. Thank you so much for having me on your show today.
Oh my goodness. Well, as I was saying just before we went live, you've been a rock star for us. April and I met a while ago, but we finally had her as a guest on Dream College Academy. And the students and the dreamers and my team, they just love all of you, but really all the tips and the golden nuggets that you've been able to share with our dreamers. And we just believe that why leave it just with them and when so many other people need to know this information. So I'm so glad you made time for us in this busy season. Tell us, so listeners, we are in the beginning, we're recording this, it's the early parts of March, but share with our listeners what you were saying just earlier. What does that mean this time of year? What does that look like in an admission office?
Yeah, Cynthia, so that's a good question. So all of those seniors who spent their summers and their falls putting their applications together are probably sitting there wondering about what's happening now. So we have gone through a lot of our review at this point, and we're putting final reviews, final touches, trying to get those decisions ready for students so that at least for the University of San Francisco, our students will get their decisions electronically next week. So this week is all about making sure that we have given every student the thoroughness of the review that we want them to have so that they can get that decision next week.
Okay, good. You answered my question. I was wondering, what do people do? What do colleges do these days? Because email, we used to send these big packets when I was at Vassar. So what kind of celebrations should they expect from USF?
Well, so in any usual year, we would let them get the big envelope first. So we do have a beautiful admit packet with a poster and some things we're really proud of so that they can keep them for themselves. But as you probably know, here in San Francisco, like in much of California, we are working from home and have been for almost a year now. So our ability to get folks into the office to put those packages in the mail is a little bit limited. So this year we are sending the big envelope, but it's going to come a little bit later than the electronic decision. So we thought that it was most important, given all the uncertainty, maybe all the stress that students are under, that we go ahead and give them that digital decision first. So our students will get their decisions digitally on Tuesday, and then we will have packets in the mail as soon as we can after that.
Okay, cool. Thank you for explaining that, because I think, again, all of this is so mysterious to people on the outside. So I loved the busyness of the office around this time of year. We were all shuffling around. You're right, and I didn't even think about that. Putting those packets together takes a lot of time and a lot of manpower. So women and manpower. So okay, cool. All right, so listeners, I'm going to just say this right now. You want to grab your beverage of choice and get your pen and paper if you're old school like me, or something to take notes, because April, I promise you, is going to drop a bunch of bombs and golden nuggets. So get ready. All right. Well, we're going to dive in, and there are plenty of people, and especially now in COVID, that have not been to your campus. And maybe have never been to San Francisco, although that's hard to believe because it's one of the great cities. But just share with us, talk about the institutions that you've maybe been to, and in terms of being a student, maybe where you worked at, and how you landed at USF.
Yes, absolutely. So I think the important thing to remember is that I'm an only child of an only child. So when I was doing my college search, distance was very important, and I wanted a lot of it. So I wanted to be at least 5 hours driving distance from home. And I grew up in a sort of semi-rural part of Tennessee. So I also was at least slightly self-aware enough to know that as first generation college student, that I needed to be somewhere where someone could help me and they could show me the things that I didn't even know that I needed to know. So I was really only looking at small schools and didn't know anything, didn't really know what liberal arts were, but I ended up at Eckerd College in St. Petersburg, Florida, which is a small liberal arts college and one of the colleges that changed lives, and had a truly tremendous experience because of the community, because of the faculty who chose to work at an undergraduate institution. And that is what really opened up so many opportunities for me. And I had a little bit of a non-traditional experience. Like a lot of kids, I completed my first year, but I didn't quite have enough money to go back. So I went back home and I worked for 3 years and I did lots of different kinds of jobs to save up enough money. And then I went back to Eckerd to finish my undergraduate career. So while I graduated in 3 years, it took me 6, if that makes any sense at all. But even within that, I had these kinds of mentors who were thinking about me as a person and stretching me and encouraging me, and really gave me the confidence to speak and to do and to write. So it's because of them that I had a study abroad experience, or when I graduated, I spent a year in Poland on a Fulbright research grant as well. I came back from my Fulbright after that year, after my year after graduation, and enrolled at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. That's my home, my home institution, for a master's degree, and started out in one master's program that I realized after a semester wasn't a good fit, moved into cultural studies and educational foundations. So had the graduate school experience at a large public institution. And, I think that really changed my perspective and made me even appreciate my Eckerd College experience even more. And I graduated from my program at UT and was looking for what we were supposed to do next, and decided to go back to Eckerd because an admission counselor job had opened, and I had friends who had done this sort of work. And I figured, I'll go for a couple of years till I figure out my life. Do I want to go to law school? Do I want to do a PhD? What do I want? And actually ended up just really loving it after the first year. So really enjoyed how dynamic it is and how changing, and that there's just this overwhelming sense of optimism when you work in college admission. I know a lot of people seem to think of admission folks as gatekeepers, or the people who say no, but I think it's so much more than that. It's about dealing in dreams and thinking about, we work with students every day who are envisioning the world as it could be. Despite all the things that are happening right now, they see the world as it could be. And that's exciting. So I spent about 7 years at Eckerd. It was my alma mater, so I was, of course, very fond of it. And I had done, like most people in a small office, I had done everything and was just really ready to take the next step. And I was not in a big job search. The ad came up for a director of undergraduate admission and recruitment at USF, which was a new position after a restructure. Reached out to some folks to get some information, and the institution USF is, and the students there were appealing to me. I really loved that it was so much more diverse, that there was so much effort placed on first generation students, that the Jesuit mission, even though I am not Catholic, it resonated. It's humane. It's about again, fashioning the world in a way where we can become men, women, and them for others. And so how can we have the shared responsibility for the earth and for one another? And that was something that was really appealing. So I ended up making that leap across the country from St. Petersburg, Florida to San Francisco. I continue to joke now, I only moved to peninsulas. But those are, I think that those were the biggest things for me as I thought about the University of San Francisco and what it means. And, I still, to this day, think that in many ways, the most important educational experience I've had in my life, it has been working at USF. And I would say, without having the credentials from my wall, that because of this experience, because of the students, the faculty, the staff, everyone that I've worked with, from the president all the way down, I would tell you that I feel Jesuit educated.
Wow. Now, if that is not a commercial for Jesuit education, wow. Okay. So being Catholic myself, although I'm a JV Catholic, I'm definitely not varsity squad. So you might beat me on that. Okay, let's pause for a second and unpack so many golden nuggets that she just dropped. So hopefully you took some notes, listeners. But first of all, what April just said was, she was living in Tennessee. She wanted some distance. I love that she said that she knew she needed to go somewhere where other people would show her what she does not know. As first generation to college, there were a lot of things that she realized she wasn't going to know. So she landed at Eckerd College in Florida. And also just make a note, listeners, Colleges That Change Lives. It's one of the books I really promote, and just say everyone needs to have that on the bookshelf. So Colleges That Change Lives, it's a website and it's a book as well. So get that if you don't have it. And then I love this notion that there's lots of pathways to graduate from college. And thanks for saying that it took you 3 years, but really in the span of 6 years. And not having enough money, and you go back to home and get some money to go back and finish up. So there was a piece of resilience that kept you going and to finish. And not everybody finishes. So know out there, listeners, if you're listening, and we had someone in Dream College Academy who's a transfer student and is just plugging along. So I'll ask you probably later a little bit to explain what a Fulbright is for our listeners, just to know, for them to know what that is and how they find out about it once they're in college. And then here's the piece that I love. Admissions is about dealing in dreams. And everyone who's listening, hopefully, whether you're a parent or of a teen who's college bound or a champion of one, a mentor, a coach, teacher, you're dealing in dreams. And so please be aware of all the things that the messages that you give each child that you meet. You're helping to promote their dream. So can you just back up for a second, because that's just great, and landing at USF and being sort of embraced by the Jesuit community and understanding what their bigger mission is. That is certainly important. For those of us who are called to this business of admissions, often feel like we're on a mission ourselves. So that's perfect. In high school, you said that you're first generation to college, which means, everyone, that her parent did not attend college, and she was the first person in her family to then go on to college and complete college. So how did you know who in high school, who was helping you along and saying, hey, April, you can go to college? Who were your champions and cheerleaders in high school?
So I think that, within school itself, I have always had, I think, really good relationships with teachers, because I think I've always found those people with ideas and people who can share and teach engaging. And I was in some ways a very shy person in high school. One would not know that now, but I was, I was absolutely terrified. I was like, please just don't notice me, which was my social level there. I was in the marching band, and that was my crew right there. And that's where I felt safe. But I never really had a problem talking to my teachers. And I had several truly incredible teachers who I'm not sure to this day realized how much of an impact that they had. So I had an AP US history teacher, Mrs. Nugent, who I am still connected with, who her outlook and she made me feel smart in a way that I had never felt before. And I never really thought of I thought of myself as pretty average. But I think she had a really good way about that. And then I think, not to kind of play on that trope, but I had two truly incredible English teachers, Mrs. Runger and Mrs. Beverly, both of whom I am still trying to find to let them know how important they were in my life. They taught me to write. They taught me how to really read and analyze. And I was ready for college because of them. But some of it was the way that I had been tracked into certain classes. So there was just this assumption that if you were in an honors or an AP class, that you were going to college, because everybody else in that class, that was their family's expectation of them as well. So I've always said in some ways I've just been in the wake. And so whatever my friends did who seemed to know what they were doing, I followed them. So they knew to go to a college fair. I didn't know to do that. They knew that you went to visit places, and they knew about letters of recommendation, and they knew why the SAT was important. And granted, this was 1996 or so. So I followed them quite a bit. And so my friends unknowingly also became other heroes and mentors in their own way, and in a very quiet way that I could probably never be able to do justice to. And they did it because that was what their normal was. And I watched and I mimicked what they were doing. And that's how I knew to do those sorts of things. I think in my family, there was always and I think this feels very familiar for a lot of first-gen kids that I talk to. There was always this sense that going to college is going to be that thing that gets you out of poverty. It's going to make you're going to do better. I think that was just known without any data, without anything. It was just a given. So there was an expectation in its own way that I was going to go to college. But nobody really knew how to help me do that other than to say, you should go. We want you to go, do better than we did. And this is how you do it, without knowing the details of how that worked. So, my grandfather particularly was my best pal, for my entire life. And, I think he was the reason that I learned so much about life, but he was always right there behind me, and he was pushing. It's like, you're going to go to college. This is what you need to do. This is how you're going to get out, out in all these sorts of ways. And this is how you're going to make something. So I think I got very, very lucky. I had a family who wanted that for me, even though they might not know how to get it for me. And then I was I was with friends and I was with teachers as well who were helping cultivate that. And I'm not sure they ever really knew that I didn't know that I was going to go to college. I think they just assumed that was the case. And because they assumed it, I did too.
Oh my God, there's a golden nugget right there too. Because they assumed it, I did too. So, oh my gosh, exploding here. So teachers who made you feel smart, teachers who are listening, again, little things that you say to students, just stick with us. Like I too remember the very first time I felt smart, like someone thought I was smart. So making students feel smart, and then expectations. Being in honors and APs, it's an expectation. Everybody else in the class is going to college, going to a college fair. I don't know. You just do what they do, right? You just keep doing that. And I love what you said, that your friends became also heroes and mentors, and that's awesome. And people say lucky, you use the term lucky, and I would say that you were, luck is when preparation meets opportunity, and you were prepared. You were, unbeknownst to yourself, maybe you were preparing to be, set, and your teachers and your friends and the expectation of going really helped you.
And Cynthia, I think I would also be remiss if I did not acknowledge my own privilege as well. And so, being a white presenting woman, there was also an expectation that was bestowed upon me that I was going to go to college in my own way. And so I think that, yes, I absolutely believe that there was good fortune, but I am not ignorant also of the privilege that my life has afforded me in this way as well, and has opened a lot of doors that might have been closed for others.
So good. And thank you for saying that out loud. And for those who are just listening and not watching, April, she said, is a white woman. And parents, if you're listening and you are a parent of an underrepresented minority student, you want to advocate for your kids to have honors and AP courses as well. And sometimes that's not always truth, and that's not always how they're tracked. And so please be aware that honors and AP is really the pathway, one of the best pathways to college when you're in high school. So thanks for pointing that out. Okay, so that brings us to our, now you're, at USF, and you described it so beautifully. And I interviewed recently also John Rice from your institution and from your team. And, USF is this diamond in the rough. I mean, diamond in the city, not in the rough, in the city, in the middle of a great city. And he told me there's 55 acres. I didn't know that. Holy smokes. So anyway, if you haven't visited San Francisco or USF, please, it's a great place to visit. So obviously we're in the middle of COVID, so it's been more restrictive.